Ian Daff Memorial Award winner for 2022 goes to Mr. Tony Britt. Firstly, welcome, Tony.
Good on you, Paul. Thank you.
And congratulations. What an award to win. It's a great award. It recognises so many parts, I suppose, of the breeding industry.
That's right. It's certainly an honour.
It is. I was fortunate enough. I interviewed Blanche Poole last year, and it meant the world to her to win it. It's something that I suppose a lot of breeders strive for, especially in the Victorian harness breeding field.
That's right. Ian Daff was an interesting character. He was he really did a huge amount of work studying families, standardbred families, and collating data. And he published a number of books. And this was in an era back in the 1980s and 1990s, before computers. So I don't know how he did it, but I assume it was with reams of pencils and paper and the good old-fashioned way.
It was a bit time-consuming, I would imagine. It would mean a lot to you because, I mean, we're going to get onto the reason you've been awarded for it, but it must mean a lot to you that you've been acknowledged, for a person you worked alongside of and probably admired from afar.
Certainly that's the case. And from as a person that's been interested in breeding horses for all my life, to be recognised by Harness Breeders Vic is certainly an honour.
And it's well worthy. Your achievements through, you were the president of Harness Breeders Victoria back not that long ago.
No, I was president for about 5 years in a period that of fairly rapid change as we established a website for the first time and we reviewed our constitution, drafted a new constitution, put Desiree on, which was certainly a major step forward for the organisation. So in the context of Harness Breeders Vic, I've been involved at a committee level, although I'm no longer on the committee. And before then, as a committeeman and president of the Bendigo Harness Racing Club, I was involved with the introduction of the Breeders' Crown back in the 1990s.
Before we go on to a few of those achievements, how long or what your length of involvement in harness racing, if it's not a rude question?
It's an interesting question you've asked, Paul. I actually started in harness racing as a paid employee of the Harness Racing Board, as it was known then, back in the 1980s. And worked initially as a vet swabbing horses and doing the like, and finished up as Deputy Chief Executive Officer of Harness Racing Victoria, which had a lot of responsibilities and very demanding from a personal point of view, and I took a career change. But that was an interesting period in itself because harness racing did a lot of work with drug testing, to demonstrate that the testing methods used at the time by the Sydney laboratory, which was the major thoroughbred laboratory in Australia, weren't up to standard and couldn't detect some of the drugs that we had believed that were being used. So actually, as part of my job with Harness Racing, the Harness Racing Board had a couple of mares and kept them not far from where we are now and treated them, collected urine, and helped the laboratory that we ultimately set up here in Melbourne to get their testing up to speed.
As far as a breeder goes, that's an amazing achievement because then it means when your horses go to stud and we're here at the sales complex, when they go back through the sales, you know that they've been racing on their merits.
It's all about integrity, and punters need to be confident that they're going to get a run for their money if they bet on a horse. It's so important. And there's an animal welfare dimension to it as well. You can't have horses that are, for example, lame, running on anti-inflammatories or stimulants and depressants and so forth. It's just not on from an animal welfare perspective.
In the breeding barn, you said there before you with the initial starting, I suppose, of the Breeders' Crown, you started off with that. Has it exceeded your expectations where you guys were hoping for it to get?
Well, we were hoping it was going to stay in Bendigo, Paul. But the story was that we heard a rumour that Alan Galloway from Malabar was interested in supporting the Breeders' Crown concept. And I think he approached the Echuca Club, and for whatever reason they weren't interested. So I was on the Bendigo Club at that point, and we made contact with Alan and said, we'll work with you. The Bendigo Harness Racing Club will work with you. in conjunction, in partnership with the breeders and studmasters to get the Breeders' Crown off the ground. And so it was actually an initiative of the Bendigo Club and Harness Breeders, as it was then. And the Bendigo Club, for example, employed Jeff Barnes, who you'd know. And Jeff went to New Zealand, talked to all the studs over there, talked to many of the studs in Victoria and throughout Australia, and got them signed up. He's a pretty persuasive guy, is Jeff, when he sets his mind to it. So all the investment to get the Breeders' Crown in terms of effort and energy and funding was, in terms of that administrative side of things, was from the Bendigo Harness Racing Club. We got it going, it was successful. A decision was made to extend the series to cover 3-year-olds, but the board at the time decided to run the 3-year-old finals at Moonee Valley. So you had a bizarre situation of running 2-year-old finals at Bendigo, 3-year-old finals at Moonee Valley, and you couldn't really, from a Bendigo perspective, create the profile that we needed to get the Breeders' Crown to where it needed to be. And ultimately the board decided in their wisdom to move it away from Bendigo, and it went to Cranbourne. Not so successful, went to Ballarat. Certainly Ballarat lifted it to a new level, and of all the race days on the calendar, the Breeders' Crown Finals Day is the one that I personally find the most interesting and look forward to the most.
You said there before about Harness Breeders, and this of course is brought to us by the Harness Breeders Victoria. Working with them in that initial pay start, is that what then led to you becoming the president? Like, did you enjoy working with them and understanding the way they were going about what they were doing?
Well, I'd been president of the Bendigo Club for I think 5 years, leading up to when I left the Bendigo Club and joined the Harness Breeders Committee. And I don't know, it wasn't something I aspired to, but I found myself vice president for a number of years with Stan Rutland as the president. And then when Stan stepped down, I took over as president and started a stint as president during a period of rapid change when we needed to review and update our constitution, get a web presence, and get much more professional in terms of how we operate as an organisation, which led to Desiree's appointment.
You must be proud of the achievements they're doing now. I mean, we're here, said at the sales complex, we've got V9, V8, V9, V12, which are terrific for Victorian breeding, and they're not resting on their laurels.
No, that's right. Look, it's a tough game being a breeder. There are lots of ups and downs. You've got to get your mare in foal. She's got to foal safely, and you've got to have a foal with straight legs, and then you've got 12 months before it's ready for the yearling sale. So it's challenging, but with the standard-bred horses, they've typically got a really good temperament. The foals are not difficult to handle. They want to please you, and so it's something my father did. He bred a lot of horses. He owned a Victorian Broodmare of the Year and got that award at one stage, and it's a tradition a family tradition that I've carried on.
You still enjoy the breeding too, because as I said, we're here at William Inglis, and you've got one to go. We've gone through under the hammer there before, but you're still actively in the breeding and enjoy the breeding side of things.
I do. Part of the reason why I'm still involved is that my dear father-in-law, who passed away 10 or 12 years ago, he was a school teacher. He saw my father being a successful breeder, and was convinced that the way forward was to buy a horse. You'd have an interest and an income. I don't know where he got that idea, but we went to Alabar Farms and came home with a filly that raced under the name of Mother Courage. And Mother Courage was a champion of her era. And the mare that I'm breeding out of at the moment is a daughter of Mother Courage, and the horses that I'm selling at the sales are Mother Courage's grandchildren. She's their granddam. So it's a pretty strong family. And they're good from a temperament point of view, which for an old bloke like me, one of the things that breeders don't consider. They look at pedigrees and performance and all the rest, but temperament is so important, because you don't want to be breeding horses that are going to knock you around.
No, definitely not. Tony, thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Congratulations to, and thank you very much for your contribution to harness racing full stop, but also the harness racing breeding part. I really enjoy what you guys have done. You've set up a great structure, if you like, for Harness Breeders Victoria, the flow and effect of what the administration are running it now, and the continued growth. Congratulations on winning the Ian Daff Memorial, mate. Well done and well deserved.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you.